What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Old Eyes, New Glasses podcast series on fatherhood. This is episode 4 today, and man, we're juiced. We are joined by one of my longest and dearest friends and brothers, Mr. Dennis Smith. Dennis is a musician, a lawyer, a community activist, in Oakland, California, through and through. What's up, Den? How are you today, man?
Man, I'm blessed. I'm doing really good. I'm happy to be done with 2020, man. That's for sure.
Man, thank you so much. It's in the rearview mirror, man, and you know people got to get out of neutral and get out of reverse and put this shit in forward and move. Let's go, cause man, it's been crazy, man. But thank you very much for joining us, man. It's our honor to have you with us today. I'm looking so forward to this conversation, man. And I think what's really unique about us interviewing and talking with you today is that you are the only dad that we have talked to who actually had a kid and then decided later in life to start over again. Yeah. And so that's what's really interesting to me. And that's why I'm really looking forward to chopping this up a little bit. Can you just share with everybody, how many kids you have, their ages, their names, so forth and so on, and then we'll just dive in and chop it up.
All right. Well, I have 3 sons. Never was able to pull off a girl, but well.
That's on you too, bro. That's not on the lady.
No, I know, but I was shooting for balance, but whatever. So I walk around sideways a little, but I have 3 sons. My eldest son, Aaron, who lives up there close to you in Sac, is, what is he? He's 30, he'll be 39 this year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh man, and then there's then the second one is Rumi. Rumi is he's about to turn 22. Mm-hmm. And then Maceo, he's the youngest. He's 17. He'll be 18 this year.
Okay.
And be finishing up high school, starting college this year. So we're all excited about that.
Man, the nest is about to be empty, bro.
Woohoo!
I know that's right. Well, again, man, that is it's a blessing to be able to have healthy kids, obviously, and you're a granddad too. I didn't mention that, but obviously Aaron is got 4 children.
He's got 4. He's got 3 boys and then a girl. Yeah, so man, the first girl in the family.
Wow, that's nice. That's deep. Well, Abe, I'll throw it over to you, man, to kind of kick off the conversation, man, and we'll go from there.
Definitely, 100%. So I think the first question that I'd like to throw to you, Uncle, is I'm entering this stage in my life where I'm starting to notice some of my friends and my peers starting to have kids. So, what advice could you give to young dads that are just starting that journey of parenting? And I know there's a lot of things that could be said, but if there was one thing that you could impart on somebody else that's just about to start fatherhood, what would that be? What would that be?
Well, it makes me think back on when Aaron was born. Okay, so when Aaron was born, I was 20 years old. I was still in college, right? So, I was barely a sophomore in my sophomore year of college. So I still had a long way to go. And so, it was quite a scary proposition. And then I became a single dad with him when I was about 22. So, I'm basically, a kid myself, and I have the responsibility of raising a kid. And so what I think back on is the fact that, at the time I felt like I had nothing, right? I had no money, I had no education. Mm-hmm. I was just, I'm just struggling myself. And then, I have this kid. And I remember having these conversations with him, but I remember saying, the day he was born, he changed my life. He's the reason why I'm the man I am, and he's the reason why I'm the dad that I am, because he taught me everything. I was still a kid. I was still in school. He taught me everything about what it is to be a man and to be a dad, right? And when I totally fell in love with him, it was I've had this conversation recently. It was total unconditional love, right? It's like he could do no wrong, right? And so everything that I did as a dad was rooted in this unconditional love for my child. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna be and do whatever I can possibly do to be the best dad that I can be. And that's given the fact that there, like I said, there's no manual about it. Everybody is completely different, right? And you don't know that. And I learned that he is who he is to this day. He was that when he was born, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't make him anything. I didn't create anything. He is who he is, and I look at like the things that he struggled with when he was like 2-3 years old. He still struggles with that stuff. It's just that now he has the education and the knowledge to address it better. Mm-hmm. Instead of just, crying about it. He can do something about it. Whereas, but he's still the same cat, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have to, as a parent, from the beginning, understand that they are who they are. That they are who they are, and they're not put here for us. We're put here for them.
There you go.
And so if you look at not trying to make them something, but help them to be who they are.
Yeah.
And to lead that journey with just love. Because really, I felt like that's all I had to offer him. All I had to offer him was love, because I had nothing. I had no money, no education, no job, nothing. I had to just say, look, man, all I got, and I got plenty of it, is love.
Yeah.
And whatever happens, we're gonna move forward on that basis, And then I told him, I said, man, you and I, we're kind of partners in this, because I have no idea, And so we gonna figure this out together. We're gonna figure this out together. But keeping in mind that the best outcome is what we're striving for. The best outcome is what we're striving for all the time, no matter how rough it gets, no matter how many meals we skip, any of that kind of stuff. It's about, we are going to get better. We're going to always strive to be better. I'm going to be the best dad I can be. If I'm screwing that up, man, you let me know. It's like, you just let me know, because I don't want to screw up. I want to do the right thing, So I think it is sort of a partnership with your child. I mean, just understanding that that they are people too, and we're not. They don't work for us. They're not. They wasn't born to be something of us. Yeah. They were born to live their lives, man, and we have to kind of guide that and try to make sure that they get whatever they can get from us. So that's my main thing. It's just love your child, man. Love your child like nothing else. Like more than yourself, more than going out to the clubs, more than any of that stuff. Actually, even more than your job. Your job is just there to help you provide for your family. Mm-hmm. And so that is the main focus. It's like, just be there for them.
Yeah. I love that. I love that entire message, man, because Avery obviously asked the question about young fathers, and for you to just be able to just say like, yo, it's about just unconditional love and not trying to make them what you want them to be. Mm-hmm. And I do think that as parents, this isn't just as fathers, but as parents, I think there does be there is this tendency to try and kind of live your life sometimes through your kid. And I observed that very, very early, and when Avery started playing sports. I looked at all of these parents who had their kids playing sports. Your kid on the AAU circuit too, the basketball circuit too, was right. And so it's just kind of like, for that dad that like did not make it to college on a scholarship to play ball, you trying to make sure it's your kid or go to the NBA and all that. And I just always remember something that my father told me when Avery and Justin were younger. He was just kind of observe what it is they like, and then just like encourage them in that area.
Yeah.
And it was some of the best advice that I'd ever had, because I was trying to figure this thing out, and it just made me relax. And it's like, oh, that's how you do this, right? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I could do that. Like, they like this. Okay, yeah, we'll encourage them to do that. So I love hearing what you just shared with us and with the audience that listens to this, because I think that is very, very crucial. It's a good message. Let me ask you this. You mentioned that you had Aaron at 20, you became a single parent with him, a single dad at 22, not having anything. Let's keep it 100. At 22, you didn't even know who you were yet, right?
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
Right. So now all of a sudden you got to kind of figure out, like, this path moving forward. And is there anything that is there a moment, and this doesn't have to even be with Aaron, it could be with Rumi or Maceo, your younger kids. Is there a moment or an event or a circumstance that you feel like made you the father that you are today, or the father that you became at a particular point in that journey?
Well, I didn't have a dad growing up.
Mm-hmm.
All my life, my father, passed away when I was 7 months old. So I'd never had a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew what a dad was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even growing up, I didn't really know people who had dads. I mean, there's a couple of people, that had dads, but, I didn't really, that whole dad thing just didn't really register. So for me, like when I was a little child, I made up in my mind what a dad is, like who my dad is, and I spoke to my imaginary dad, because you do need a dad in your life somewhere in your heart. Your dad is there, and you just have to try to connect with him. And that the only way I could do that is just creating that in my head. But I never thought I was going to have kids, right? I mean, it was like, I wasn't thinking about that. But the moment when you asked me for the moment that changed all that, and I tell you, I witnessed my child being born. All three of them, I was there. And the last two, they were born by C-section, which that's another whole mind-blowing. Woo! So, but to witness them coming into this world and being these little life forms, man. I told you, like I tell you, like Aaron changed. He's responsible for me being. It was that moment. Like prior to that, I was scared. I used to go to the library and look at those videos of childbirth, because I heard that people pass out. Dads, they pass out in the delivery room and stuff. And I was like, nah, man, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna look at some of these things so I can be ready.
Right.
And so up to that point, I had nothing. I didn't know what to expect, man. But as soon as he was born, it just changed it just blew my mind, man. I was like a different person, like before and then after, right? I mean, it's so clear in my memory of that moment where just everything changed for me. Everything changed for me right there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's deep. That's really. Now you got me thinking back to when these cats were born, and I mean it is a life-changing moment. I think because I was 31 when Avery was born versus you being 20 when Aaron was born. But then you mentioned Rumi and Maceo coming along. Was it that same feeling for you, even though you had been through this already? Was it a little bit different? Did their birth affect you in a particular way?
Yeah, okay, so Rumi was born when Aaron was like 16, 15 or so, and I was close to the end of my road. I was like, okay, now, it's like I'm almost done being a dad, and then now I'm going to start all over again. And there's this whole thing, like, because it was just just Aaron and I for all those years. I gave all my love to him, right? Just that's all, and I felt like, do I have any love left over for other children? Yeah. Is this gonna, it's like, is this gonna be fair? Yeah. And then, and so then what Rumi taught me was, as soon as he was born, the same thing. It was like this, boom. And I totally realized that you can love more than one person infinitely, right? Unconditionally and infinitely, every moment. And we do have that capacity to love. It's like you don't run out of that, right? You don't run out of love. But in your mind, you'd be like, well, I love this person so much, I don't know if I'll be able to love somebody else like that. But boom, and so then when Maceo come along, I felt that same thing, and I was like, wow, I'm starting to spread myself thin, and it's going to be like, oh man, another kid. I don't know if I'm going to be able to love him as much. Yeah. But it just happens, and again, it's that birth moment, man. I would say, if you have that opportunity, you should be there for the birth of your child, because it really is a mind-blowing experience. And it really does, if you take it seriously, it does change your life. And it made me understand that in more of a global sense, because now I've got all these sons that I love like so much. That's like, oh, okay, we could probably do that in the world. We're not limited in how much love we have and how much love we can give. Yeah. If that's all in our mind, we limit ourselves by thinking that we only have so much. But in actuality, it's endless. We can tap into an endless stream of love, and it doesn't to take away from the love that you have for somebody else, and it's like, wow. And that was a lesson I learned, much later in parenting, but it was like, wow, man, just these major epiphanies that I was having with this childbirth, experiences.
Yeah. No, that's beautifully said. And Pops, now I kind of got to put you on blast. Were you in the delivery room when when I was being born and when my brother was being born? Now I gotta ask.
So what's really funny, man, it's funny that you bring this up, because me and your mom and your brother were talking about this 3 or 4 nights ago.
Okay.
And we were talking about the day that both of you guys were born. And yes, I was in the room when you were born, but so was seemingly the rest of the football team that was part of our family. Your grandmother, my mother-in-law was there. Your Aunt Tawana was there. Your Aunt Daria was in the room. The Lamaze teacher that me and your mom had was also a doula. And so mom had asked her, weeks before you were born, to kind of play that role for her. So she was in the room along with the doctor and the nurse, right? And so, yeah, bruh, I mean, I could barely get into the huddle, but but I was definitely there with like buku support, which made it easier for me. Now on the flip side, when Justin was born, it was me, your mom, the doctor, and the nurse. It was almost, Dan, it was almost like, if you go back to like the NASA, the Apollo series, like once John Glenn like orbited the moon, then after that, it was just kind of like, okay, been there, done that. Like,
there's no routine now.
Right. And so, but the point is that, yeah, it does change you. What it told me, honestly, besides kind of like, wow, like immediately I have this, I'm responsible for somebody, and no longer responsible for, me and just, me and your mom. I was responsible for somebody, but it gave me a great deal of appreciation that, at the end of the day, as men, we're really, really weak because we couldn't give birth. I mean, I know this, right?
Oh yeah.
I know straight up, it's like, nah, like I couldn't handle that, right? I would be tapping out. And it really made me understand how strong a woman is and how strong a woman's body is to be able to do that. So that was kind of like my immediate feelings right there. Was like, I'm responsible for this young person that's coming into the world, and I got like a whole lot of way more respect for what women go through, and certainly your mom. Like, when your mom teases me and says, if I got the flu or a cold or something, she's like, quit acting like a baby. And I'm like, yeah, she can legitimately say that because she gave birth without epidural at that. So, that was, So anyway, Avery, that's how it hit me.
It reminds me of a funny story that your brother used to tell me, right? He said that, I guess, maybe after you were born, he asked, your dad, where do babies come from? And your dad told him, he said, I don't know. They took your mom in another room and then you came out, so I don't know. He totally dodged that question, boy.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
That was funny. Yeah, your dad was funny like that, man. I miss your dad.
I miss him too, man.
I know you do, brother.
I miss him too. But anyway, Abe, I'll toss it over to you, man.
Yeah. So the next question I have for you, Uncle, at the beginning of every single one of our presentations or keynotes, we like to ask the audience members this one question that gets the wheels turning, and that question is, who are you? And when we ask that, a lot of people, they have to take time to really digest what that question is asking, and it's really straightforward. Who are you? It's not too often that we're asking ourselves that question. And so the question that I have for you is, if I were to ask you as a father, who are you? What would be your response to that?
Man, I am I'm kind of like a passenger on a journey, on this long journey, right? And I'm on this journey with them. If you're asking about being a parent, because every day is different, and what happens in their lives is different every day, and it requires some thinking through some deal or whatever. Yeah. And they need help doing that. I mean, you don't just say, oh yeah, we go figure it out, you 3-year-old kid. So, you got to be there for them, and you got to work through whatever it is. But it's a journey. It's not like we know where we're going with this. It's like there's no like destination. Like for you, Avery. It's like I've known you all of your life, and I've never thought, okay, so Avery is gonna be this, and so now he's gonna have to do all these things to do that. No, Avery is going to do what Avery is going to do. And, the journey is to watching you to move towards that and to help you so that you don't fall down a crack or when you break your arm or something like that, make sure that it's set right so then you can, use that arm the next time out, but that's really it is. So, I'm just a journey person. I'm just out here on a journey with my family, trying to be global enough to experience as many things as we can, and also to be able to just kind of be there to help along and help them along in their journey, because really life is a journey. It's not a destination. Death is not what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get all of the stuff, all the moments of all of our lives, the best we can get them, and so sometimes, that's the best we can do. It's just like, just be on that journey, man. So I feel like I'm just like, I'm not the captain of the ship. I'm not the, I'm not the navigator, or I'm just one of the other, passengers on this ride, man. And I have some influence in the direction perhaps that we're going to go in. If I see like we're heading towards an iceberg, I'm like, no, we're not going to go that route. But that's about it, man. It's just, I'm just a person on the journey.
Love that.
I love that. That resonates with me. I've maintained that just in my 24, almost 25 years on this earth. I realized that, life is going to give you highs and lows. And for me, it's about maximizing the length of time that the highs go and minimizing the length of the time that the lows go. But, you know, to your point, it's, you know, you're going to go through the journey, no matter, you know, where you are in life, how well off you may seem, or whatever it is, you're going to go through those highs and lows. And so, like you said, and listening to who you are as a dad, that resonates a lot with me, because I think that it's just, you know, it can be about guiding, but letting, you know, instilling the fact that, hey, life is this journey. This journey is going to present different things, and it's about how we react to it and respond to it. And that sets us apart.
You and your dad have a lot of experience. You know, you guys do a lot of stuff together, right? And each of those things wasn't something that you knew was going to happen. It's just you guys are on this journey together, right? And so those are experiences that you will share throughout life, you know, and that's going to create who you are. You know, all these experiences are the sum of, you know, who you become and who you are. You know, what happened to you in the past. I don't look back at things and say, oh yeah, you know, that was good or bad in my life, you know, because whatever it was, it made me who I am, right? And so I don't put like that kind of value on the things that happen, on the experiences that happened in my life. Yeah, I mean, you can look at things and say, man, that was challenging, you know, but it made me a stronger person. Or, you know, that was easy, you know, but that's who I am. I mean, that's what created who I am. You know, the shit that I messed up, you know, I'm not gonna go there again. So I learned that, you know, it's like, you know, like animals learning how not to eat poison plants. You know, you only have to eat one time, and then you're like, okay, not doing that anymore. You know?
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
No, so that's all part of the journey, man. We're still learning. I mean, I will continue to learn from my children until the day I leave this planet, you know, and probably even beyond that, because I don't know what's beyond that. And I'll probably still be learning from them, you know. So and I love that. I love that concept of us sharing things and learning things together, you know.
Yeah. I love that. You know, it's interesting because I remember telling these brothers that, like, when you get older, if you have children, like, you know, my encouragement to them would be, you know, take the things from me from a fatherhood perspective, take the things from me that worked for you and implement them in your own particular style that you're going to have as a parent. And then the things that didn't work for you, you know, throw them out, right? Yep. Because, you know, I mean, just like, you know, with my parents, it's like some of the stuff that they did, like, oh, okay, I vibed with that. I appreciated it. And there was some other stuff that's like, nah, you know, I'm gonna have to, like, you know, kick that to the curb and put it to the side. But as I was listening to you answer Avery's question, it was funny because it just resonated with me in that's the type of father or philosophy that I think Avery will have, because that's kind of how he lives his life. And I was just kind of tripping off of that. Not that I need this brother to be a dad anytime soon, but but I could definitely,
you know.
Well, yeah, I could definitely see him adapting what you were saying in terms of, or incorporating it into his parenting. You know, one of the things I mentioned when we first started was, you know, I mentioned that you're a musician. I mentioned that, you know, you're a lawyer. I mentioned that you're a community activist. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, at 20, being in undergrad school, having your first kid and not knowing like, you know, who you were, where you were actually headed and what have you. And so can you just share a little bit about your the work that you've done in terms of, even if you don't mind explaining, like, the whole, like, getting a law degree thing, but then the philosophy on, like, you know, like, do I practice law? Do I not practice law? Right? And all that. But the question is, how has the work that you've done, the education that you've you know, acquired along the way, how has that influenced you in any way in terms of your approach to being a dad? Some of the things that you've done and experienced, have you found that being part of just the way in which you've gone about parenting?
Okay, there's multi levels to that, to my answer on that.
Cool.
First, I want to say that, and I just started this morning when I was talking to Sheree about, because she's excited about this podcast too.
Okay.
And so we were talking, and I realized that I was born with a privilege. It's like we're talking about all these privilege, like white privilege and all this kind of stuff. And what my privilege was just the same as like if I was a white person with money, right? And so I had everything. But what I didn't have money, but what I had was my mom unconditionally loved me, right? And she put me ahead of everything, right? So that's how I grew up. So that's what I know.
Yeah.
So I just exercise my privilege in life with my children, and I do the same thing, right? But I realize not everybody doesn't have that privilege, right?
Yep.
And so I start off here, where other people might have to start off here. You know what I'm saying? So I already had some kind of fundamental thing about parenting.
Okay.
Even though I never really thought about, okay, I'm going to be a parent and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I had a fundamental base from me being a parent. What education did for me, which doesn't necessarily mean translating into being a parent, but it made me more comfortable in this world. It made me feel a little bit more power. It's like what you learn can't be taken away from you, right? Wisdom, knowledge, all those kinds of things. They can take my house, they can take my car, they can take all kinds of shit from me, but they can't take that from me. And that is an internal power that I always felt. And I felt like if I have that, then I can walk through life with a little bit more confidence.
Okay.
Now that confidence then translates itself to me being a dad.
Okay.
Because like you say, like all kinds of stuff comes up and it's like, oh man, I have to deal with this. And, and then kids will, all the stuff that you struggle with about yourself, your kids are the first ones that just throw that in your face, right? And then you're like, and you react to it and you have this like really crazy reaction to it. And then you'd be like, well, where'd that come from? Why am I so upset about that?
Yeah.
And then you realize that's some stuff that you never worked out, right? But they put it in your face. They know it. They somehow sense that, oh man, you jacked up in this little way and I'm going there. I'm going there. and so so it's a lifelong process of learning about yourself, right? And so that's knowledge that helps me along this journey, right? It's like what I didn't know yesterday, I know today, and that's going to inform how I move forward, from today on. And so it's not necessarily have to be the formal education, but formal education was the basis for this whole feeling of wisdom and knowledge being power. You hear that saying all the time, knowledge is power and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, that's a great thing to hear. But I actually felt that. It started to resonate with me as I started to move through school, right? And so then getting out and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, again, I was born a musician, right? It's like you look at me and you say, okay, that's a black dude, right? No. Just as I am a black guy, I was born a musician, right? And then it's just a matter of how do I express that in this world, And so I was always that. And I remember, like, I saw Sly and the Family Stone in 1970. Now, I'd been going to see a lot of jazz groups, Miles Davis. I'd seen a lot of different jazz groups. But when I saw Sly and the Family Stone in 1970 in Monterey, that blew my mind. And I told my mom then, I said, I'm going to do that, right? Because they were just wild, man. They were just all this energy and it was like so fun looking. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And she said, yeah, I'm not, she said, that's a 1 in a million opportunity. She says, and I'm not saying that you're not that 1 in a million. She says, but promise me that you're not going to give up on education, that you're still going to get your education. And I said, okay, I promise that. And so she says, if you promise that, I'll support you, you know, trying to be a musician.
Okay.
And then, you know, like, as a matter of fact, it was pretty funny, a full circle, but I did a concert where I opened for Sly and Family Stone when he returned to the stage, and so that kind of brought that whole feeling back, or full circle around that. Being a musician. But in the meantime, you know, I had to figure out, you know, what does this whole thing mean? You know, like jobs and all that kind of stuff, because, you know, because I had kids before I had jobs. So
Right.
my focus was already shifted over to, you know, my kids, you know, like Aaron, you know, it's like, it was shifted by then. Yeah. And so it was like, okay, so I didn't really need a job to think like, okay, I'm going to go out and make a bunch of money. You know, I mean, hell, I had lived on nothing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He and I had, I mean, really, I was getting financial aid of about $6,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And he and I was living off of that. Yeah. And, you know, of course, my mom helped out a lot, you know, she fixed meals sometimes, you know, but, you know, it's like, I was used to not having anything. So money wasn't a big thing for me. You know, it was like, yeah, you got to have money, but I never had this aspiration of being like, oh, super rich or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But what I did understand when I went to law school, I realized that, like, when I was growing up, nobody knew lawyers. Right. Nobody knew lawyers, you know, and it was like, that is somebody, every family, everybody in our community needs to have access to somebody with that information. Yes. You know, and we all grew up with nobody like that. Right. We, you know, nobody would just chop it up with us and say, hey, well, you know, I wouldn't do that, you know, because the law says it, any of that kind of stuff. Right. Yep. It was just like, we're just on our own. And that's what people in our community are like, man, we're just all on our own, you know. Yeah. Yeah. We don't have somebody that cares about us to give us advice, you know? Mm-hmm. So then I said, well, look, I have this power, I have this knowledge, I have this wisdom. Mm-hmm. I don't need to use it for me getting rich. Yeah. I need to use it for this community that I grew up in that had nothing like this. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so then I said, okay, so then I started doing the work that I do, you know, working with youth. And it was like, that is what it's all about. You know, it's about, I've been given a privilege and this knowledge that, you know, I mean, that was a gift. You know, it was a gift from my mom. It was a gift from whatever. And but I need to now give that back. And the people who I saw needed that the most is my community. You know, the community we grew up in, bro, and the people that we knew, and just watching how. I mean, it's fortunate that like a lot of the cats that we grew up with actually turned out pretty good, even without that, you know. Yeah. But a lot of them didn't. A lot of them ended up smoked on in 6 feet under too, you know. And it's like, so it's, you know, it's so I dedicated my life to that, you know. And it's not like, okay, you know, I made a decent living. I make a decent living. I do a decent job in playing music. I make decent money playing music. Mm-hmm. And again, just like love, you know, it's like I said, well, you know, we don't have a limited capacity of love, you know. Like I learned that, and this was maybe 10 or 12 years ago. Sheree and I went to this workshop, and I kept talking about the me of the musician, the me of the community person, the me of the parent, and like I'm like 3 or 4 different people. Yeah. And dude told me, he says, you talk like you're 3 or 4 people. You're not. You're one person. Yeah. You're one person that does all this. And so it's like, wow. I mean, it just opened my, it's like I didn't have to compartmentalize my existence, right? I was like, oh, okay. So I can't just be a dad. Yeah. I can just be a dad because that's what I've always wanted to do, just because probably I didn't have a dad. And I always thought that is the most important thing that I could ever do. And everything else can revolve around that. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, you know, those kinds of sort of, I guess it's, I'm not sure if it's a value, but it's a focus that if you put your focus here and everything else just kind of feeds that focus, right? So the job feeds the focus, Music actually feeds my spirit, and I connect to my spirituality and also to the spirituality of the world through music, because I feel like there's this untouched or untapped, just like river of spirituality that flows above all of us, right? And music elevates me to that level of being able to tap into that spirit, and it guides the music, but it also shares that with the spirit of all people. So, those kinds of things, it's like, it doesn't have to be like that's something different for me. That's all just who I am,
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm living 3 different lives or 4 different lives. No, I'm living the one life.
Yeah.
And so that was another interesting observation. It's like, because I think that a lot of times people, people say, well, what do you do? And what they're asking is, what do you do, for a job or for a gig?
Yeah.
But a lot of times, we're so wrapped up in our career of we identify, like, they say, like it's a lawyer, it's like, I could have totally identified with being a lawyer and just say, oh, I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like, that is who I am.
Yeah.
No, man, that's not who I am, And it's like, so I think people get so wrapped up, and, and like when I was in law school, man, I'm telling you, people's whole ego was tied up into them being a so-called lawyer, right?
Yep.
I mean, and so they didn't see themselves as being anything other than that.
Yep.
And I was like, no, man, you're a human being that's got all kinds of creative ideas. I was always trying to tap into people's creativity, man. I was like, yeah, I know you can read books, and I know you can write these little, briefs, but what do you have in your heart? What's your creative outlet? It's like, that's the, you need to touch that, They probably thought I was smoking too much weed or something, law folks, but they'd be like, yeah, what's this dude on, man?
Right. But that was the artist in you, though, right? That was the musician in you that you were born, as and born to be. And that's what that was for you, even when you were going through this. And it's interesting because a few minutes ago, he asked the question about who are you as a dad. And one of the reasons that we always do that when we're working with organizations, or we're working with just groups of people, or doing a keynote, we always focus first on self-awareness. That's just kind of that's our thing, right? Because we talk a lot about relationship, and we talk about things like, building bridges of understanding, and how do you build trust, within the relationship, and setting expectations, and resolving conflict, and all of those type of things. At the end of the day, foundationally, it really does start with, one's self-awareness, right? Because you can't really address any of those other things, efficiently and effectively if, like, you haven't done the self-exploration. And so when you just, when you talked about these people, when they add, what do you do? You're absolutely right. It's just kind of like, it's like a work related thing. And Avery always says, when we're debriefing, after we go through this stuff, he always asks the question of, like, do you think, when you're answering this question, do you think to answer the question from your personal perspective or your professional perspective? And most people always kind of start with the professional because it's like, that's what they identify, in terms of defining themselves. So that was really, really interesting. The other thing you said, I just want to just touch on this for a minute. You've mentioned on a couple of occasions that, you didn't have, that your dad passed away when you were very, very young. And I think it's important for people that hear this podcast and hear this particular episode, as we go through all these fatherhood episodes, that, you've become the father you have become in spite of the fact that you did not have, your father physically there throughout your life. And I think there's a lot of people then that have that, and certainly in our community, and this, that there's a lot of fathers that are raising kids, and they didn't have a father. They didn't have anybody to model behavior for them, right? And some people are able to keep it pushing and not let that be a barrier to who they're going to become as a father. But there's other people that just kind of like that never leaves them. And so it's just kind of like, well, I was never shown that. And so, I don't know how to, be a father and so forth and so on. And the reason that resonates with you saying that on a couple of occasions, because I applaud you obviously for, being the dad that you are and, coming from where you've come from, even though moms did download all that love and support in you, and you were rich for that, right? And as you said, not everybody has that. But my father said something to me when I was grown that I didn't know, and Avery and I talk about this when we're chopping up and we're speaking to families. He told me that that he loved his father, but he didn't like him. And it wasn't until I became, I was maybe in my mid 30s when we were having this conversation, when he first told me this, because I didn't know him. He died when my father was 16. But my father began to tell me a lot of stories about him and how, he was very physically and verbally abusive to my dad. And my father, pledged to himself that if he were to ever have kids, then he would not treat his children the way that his father treated him. And so, Avery and I talk about intergenerational trauma and how that's just passed down from one generation to the next and so forth and so on. And so for the brothers out there that are growing up, that are parents that did not have dads when they were growing up, you talked about this a little bit in terms of unconditional love and so forth and so on. But what is there anything that you could share with them in terms of not passing on that intergenerational trauma? Because we all have the ability to stop it from moving forward. Some people just don't necessarily know how to do it. Can you just kind of share any words of wisdom for not even young brothers, just for brothers, period, that are in that situation that just don't feel like they've been able to move forward because they weren't shown how by a man in their life?
Absolutely, man. It wraps up a couple of things that you said, actually. Okay, so first of all, this is self-awareness. I talked earlier about how children will throw that stuff in your face, right? And all the stuff, all that baggage that you've never dealt with, now you're gonna have to deal with it. Yeah. Well, that's the journey towards self-awareness. It's like you might not even known that was some baggage that you had until your kids start acting up and putting just exactly what you do in your face, and you'd be like, man, I hate that. Yeah. But then you realize that's me, and then
my kids remind me of that all the time, Dennis. So I get it.
I know. And then it's like what your dad said to you about not liking his dad. He loved his dad, but he didn't like his dad. He didn't like the things that his dad did. And so he said, I am not going to do those kinds of things. That's self-awareness. It's like understanding that this was my history, but I am not going to perpetuate that. Just like me, I was raised, my mom spanked me, all you kids, we just got spanked all the time when I was a kid. Right. But it wasn't cool. It wasn't cool. And so I said, I'm not going to hit my kids. Yeah. And that's just a one aspect of self-awareness is that, I didn't like that. Yeah. And if I loved this person, not saying that my mom didn't love me, right. It was a different world, it was just a different world. And since I have control over my world, then I'm going to choose how I'm going to deal with these kinds of things. And I choose not to hit my child, right? But that's my self-awareness. Yeah. And I have all kinds of trauma in my past. My family has a lot of trauma in its past that I've had to, grow up with. But I have the choice of who I am. Yeah. And I have the choice of how do I be the best me? Yeah. Right. And so that's the same thing as being a father. I just want to be the best father I can be. And I'm going to learn that, but I'm going to always have that as my goal, is just being the best that I can be. I'm not trying to be the best in the world. I don't even know what that is, but I can be better. I can be a better me every day.
Yeah.
And I work towards that. And
Yeah.
that in and of itself translates itself to my being a parent, because me being better me means I'm not going to hit my kid, because that's who I've decided is going to be a better me. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so it all wraps up into what you were saying and what your dad said, you know. And it's like, as a matter of fact, you know, your dad, you know, I didn't have a dad, but your dad took me, and you know this, your dad treated me like, and he used to say, I'm his third son. Yeah. Right? We'd go places. I mean, business things that he would be on, you know, and he would invite us to, and he would introduce me. He would say, "These are my sons, and that's my third son, Dennis." You know, and I was like, "Wow, man! I mean, that's huge."
Yeah.
I mean, he never, and I feel bad because I never told him how huge that was, but that's huge. Yeah. To do that. Yeah. You know, and that's what I'm saying about this love that we have, that it's endless, you know, and that you can have, I mean, he had you and Mark, right? And you guys with his family, but he still had love for me. And I was like, wow, man, that, you know, that's huge. And at the time I didn't look at it like this endless love thing until later, when I, you know, when I become a dad and understand this whole endless love thing. Yeah. But yeah, that totally, he was that, you know, and so that was really a great experience to have your dad in my life. Yeah. Yeah. Not so much you, but your dad.
But, you know, it's interesting, man, because I always say, man, that, you know, those of us that had, you know, good parents in our lives, right? And when I say parents, plural, but it doesn't have to be plural. You know, if you're fortunate enough to have a mother in your life that loved you, or a father in your life that loved you and was there to kind of help you along the way, you know, we've hit the lottery. Yep. And I think that it's the responsibility of the people who, you know, hit the lottery in terms of parents. I mean, let's just keep it 100. It's all luck. That's a luck thing, right? Yeah. You know, it was just kind of like, you know, my family is such, you were lucky to be born into that. So point being is that, you know, if you've hit the lottery as far as that is concerned, that's kind of one of the reasons that, you know, for me, I won't speak for Avery, but for me, it brings me a lot of joy, obviously, that I kind of hit the lottery and I want to give that back. And so the stuff that we do, the impact that it has on audiences and on parents when we're speaking to them is huge, because they're not used to seeing that, right? They're not used to seeing, you know, a father and a son, multi-generational approaches to a conversation that's just a real family conversation that's leading to some real family solutions. And so, no, that's really, really cool. Abe, I'll turn it over to you. You know, we could go on for a long time, man, but we'll start to kind of wrap this up a little bit. I have one more question that I want to ask, but Avery, if you you know, as you've been sitting here listening to the old men chop it up a little bit, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I think to piggyback on what you were just saying, Pops, you know, and listening to you, Uncle, talk about my grandfather, I don't think it's any mistake that I have had that similar involvement, you know, between being the liaison between some of my friends who didn't have dads growing up, and then my father being there. I saw that link happen similarly to the way that you talk about the way my grandfather took you in and took you under his wing. You know, growing up, I can remember vividly just so many of my friends, my old basketball teammates, or whoever it was, just making the comment of like, man, your dad is so cool, or just always, you know, asking, you know, checking in with me, you know, how's Pops doing? How's Coach doing? So it's cool to see that, to see the origins of that, to listen to you and know that that's not, you know, totally by mistake, that's what my dad learned, and I hope to continue that. And that's where we are now, growing this business together, helping families. I think I to the same point that my dad made, I feel like I owe it to those around me and those that I just completely don't know. I owe it to complete strangers to impart that knowledge to impart the tools and the tips that I was just blessed to be born with. And so I think it does. It's kind of like this full circle thing that, you know, we can continue to pass it on. And that's been the motivation, you know, for me for this entire time as we continue to grow this business, is just passing on the knowledge that I was so blessed to be given. So yeah, I think that, I mean, just listening to these conversations, I love your perspective on so many things. I think that you know, my dad knows me very well, and he's already acknowledged it during this episode, but a lot of the things and a lot of the viewpoints that you have, the way that you look at things in life and how we process life, I relate to, and I find that admirable. So Pops, I'll let you ask that last question before we bounce out of here.
Absolutely.
But before we get to that last question,
Go ahead.
I just want to say to you, Avery, those of us with great privilege also have great responsibility, and you're taking that on head on, and I respect you and I love you for that, because just like where I came from, and I said, you know, I was given all these gifts, and so what, you know, those gifts weren't for me, you know, those gifts were for the world, and so that is a responsibility that I have. I've taken that seriously. You know, I know that I've had all these types of privileges, and so therefore, you know, I didn't create anything, right? It's like it's all been there, and so now it's my responsibility to share that, as much, you know, absorb and share. And so I really applaud you for doing that, and I look forward to much more of this.
There you go. There you go.
Yep. Thank you.
As we close this out, Dan, I wanted to just I want to touch on, obviously, the year that we just all went through in the year 2020 with this pandemic. And the question that I have for you is, you know, it was just a year ago for everybody. We're taping this episode on January the 2nd, 2021. So we're just obviously touching in to the new year. But a year ago, you know, January 2nd, you know, 2020, you know, obviously none of us knew what was about to, you know, transpire, what was about to happen with this worldwide virus that's going around. And so, you know, as you've been impacted by this pandemic, and, you know, as a musician, you've been impacted, right? Because you're not being able to, you know, you're not doing gigs, live performances, which you've been so used to doing, you know, for decades, right? You're not able to travel to do gigs like you've been used to for decades. But the question I have about, you know, COVID-19, how has, if in any way at all, how has the pandemic reshaped or affected how you see your role as a father, or what type of father you've been over the last year, even though Aaron is a grown man at 39, and even though, you know, the youngsters are in college and about to go to college? Has the pandemic in any way, shape, or form affected how you see your role as a dad at all?
Only in the sense, like, okay, so it just makes me feel like more of a hovering type of a dad, you know, where, like, even with Aaron, you know, I'm always calling and saying, you know, because, you know, he's a school teacher, you know, and
wait. Let's let the audience know, by the way, Aaron gravitated to musicianship in his life. And, you know, which I find fascinating, you being a musician. But yeah, he's a school teacher, a music teacher. But go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
You know, and he has to teach from home, but he also has 4 young children. I mean, his oldest is 10, and they go from, you know, 10 to 5, right? So they're, you know, and there's 4 of them in one household, and they're all having to, like, try to get on the computer and do whatever, and, you know, so and they're all like hunkered down, you know, and I'm like, man, that's a lot, you know, that's a lot. And I'm always like, okay, so how you doing, man? You know, Aaron, he's so, like, just everything. He's just so chill. Everything is just even, you know, but I always just be worried, like, okay, so is there anything you need, bro? Or, it's like, it's just, just, man, it's just, I just feel like, oh God, it's like, I wish I could be doing more,
Yeah.
And then, like with Rumi and Maceo, they're home. And so just, just being like, oh, wash your hands, you got your, when you go out, you got your mask, and hand sanitizer, make sure you got hand sanitizer and use it all, it's like, I just be for like a, like, like it's just, I don't know. I just feel like I'm just a kind of a hover. It's sort of made me hover a little bit more. And I'm not sure if that's paranoia or if it's just because I've just been hunkered down for so long, or that I'm not able to go out and play music myself. So I'm like, like just weirding out myself. But I do feel like a little bit more, like a hovering kind of a dad when usually I'm kind of like, you guys just do your thing, But yeah, now I'm like a little bit more apprehensive about that kind of stuff. Because it's a serious thing, it's really serious, and I don't want anything to happen to any of my children, so but I, again, I don't have control over that necessarily, but I feel like, I think it's that thing. It's that you have no control. I mean, we don't know anything that's going on. We don't have any idea like when things are gonna change, any of that stuff. We've been up and down in California, man. And it's like, so it's like, oh geez, it's like, so I think that just kind of wears on you, and then so it's like, for me, it's just that kind of a thing where I'm just feeling as a dad, even though they're all pretty much grown, I just, feel like, wow, it's like, how do you protect your children? Given all this that, that's going on.
Yeah.
And again, I totally feel cool with myself. I feel like, okay, I can protect myself from all this stuff. And I feel very confident in that. But, it's just, it's like when you have teenage kids and they take the car out, it's like, oh God,
Yeah. Well, for the audience that, that will be listening to this, some of you have seen Avery and I speak. You don't even have to be a teenager then when they take the car out. They could be in their early 20s and take the car out, and then they just total your car. And then they and they just say, I've been in an accident. So Avery knows that story. But no, I feel you on the whole pandemic fathering thing, the hovering thing. I admittedly through the years have been more of a hovering dad than you've described yourself today. I have been that. Maybe that was, for Avery, for example, I coached him in AAU basketball for 6 or 7 years, right? So like we had this whole I'm the coach in the house and the coach on the court, right? And so it was just kind of, so our relationship is kind of, I've always been kind of closely connected to him. And even though, much respect for him and his brother as they've become grown men, neither one of them lives at home. I'm not paying neither one of them's rent. I'm not paying neither one of them's car payments. They're grown men, but there's still that piece that in 2020 affected me like, I'm still dad. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. But I'm still kind of grinding on them more than I want to. But it's just in me that it's just kind of like I know you're taking this seriously, but like I'm not like feeling like you're taking it as seriously as I want you to take it, type thing, right? And so that's my issue, right? That's my self-awareness. It's kind of like, okay, dude, you raised them, with some decent common sense and some critical thinkers and all of these type of things, but they
still go out and wreck the car.
Good point. That's my point exactly. If Avery had not wrecked my car, man, I wouldn't be saying anything during this. But yeah, that's just, I just think it's just that parenting thing, man. But anyway, I'm gonna let Avery kind of just take us out and end it here. But brother, I gotta just tell you, man, this was a fantastic way to kick off the new year for me personally, and I'm glad that you are the first episode that we're doing after the new year, man, because it really this has been great for me. This has been just kicking it and chopping it up with you has been therapeutic. in a lot of different ways, but also I just think it's just great information and perspective and knowledge for people that hear this podcast, because that's what we're just trying to present. We're just trying to present, a different approaches to doing this thing. Nobody's got like the number one answer, so forth and so on. But we're also just trying to, provide some encouragement, which is certainly needed. Not just at this time, it's needed at all times. It don't matter if it's a pandemic or not, but encouragement, but also some hope, right? And some understanding that people aren't alone as they're out there trying to figure this thing out. So it's been a joy for me, man, and I thank you for making the time to join us this afternoon, man. This has been really cool. It's been cool.
Yeah, this has been a blast, man. Like I could go on for days, It's like,
absolutely.
I mean, you and I, we have so much history, man. It's like we can explore our own childhood traumas,
Yeah, that's gonna be another podcast series.
Yeah, really.
We just call it "Growing Up in Oakland," and then
really?
go from there, right?
Yeah, man.
For certain. But Abe, go ahead, man, and wrap us up on this, man, and we'll let you get back to your day, bro.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out another episode of the Old Eyes, New Glasses Fatherhood series. Be sure to hit that subscribe button below to see all of our latest videos, or check out some of our best clips.